Welcome back to Learn to Design on a Mobile Device with Onshape. My name is Christian Stark, and in this clip we will continue to create the first parts of our toolkit. Remember, at the beginning of this module I talked about creating a toolkit allowing you to create all kinds of GoPro mounting connectors. Well, all of them have one thing in common, which are the 2 and 3 tab connectors. So let's split the current part in half using the split tool. You select the part to be split and then the entity to split it with, which in our case is the default top plane. You now will see 2 parts in the part list on the left. It's always a good idea to provide good and descriptive names for your parts so they are easier to identify when displayed in the list. To do this, bring up the part menu and rename the part to 3-prong connector. Let's quickly do the same thing for the second part and call that one 2-prong connector. Since we're looking at the part menu, let's also quickly change the appearance or color for each part so they are easier to distinguish. Let's make the 2-prong connector blue and the 3-prong connector green. You'll also notice that the part menu allows you to hide the part, hide other parts, or delete the part entirely, or assign a material to the part. Assigning material is useful if you want to determine the weight of your part. In the bottom right of the screen, you see a little scale icon which brings up the Mass Properties dialog. It will only show you the volume and total surface area of the selected part or parts. If you specify a material by picking one from the list, such as ABS, a commonly used plastic for 3D printers, it will assign a density value which will be used to calculate the weight of your part based on its volume. Since we separated our 2 and 3-prong connectors, I will now create a new 50mm straight connector based on these connector parts. For that purpose, we will insert a new part studio and rename it to 50mm 90-degree straight connector. The Derived tool lets you insert existing parts from other document tabs into your current part studio. So let's insert our 2 existing parts into the new part studio. When you insert the parts, they will be placed at exactly the same location as in the part studio they were created in. Now in our case, I know that the hole distance is 42mm, but we want to create a part that has a 50mm hole distance. The next step is to move one of the parts by 8mm using the Transform tool. You first select the part or parts that need to be transformed. Then you select the transform type. There are various options to translate the part, to rotate, or uniformly scale it. We'll choose to translate by distance. Next, we have to specify the direction, for which I can pick a straight edge or a plane or face to which the translate will be perpendicular to. I specify 8mm for the distance and the part will be moved. I also want to rotate the part by 90 degrees, for which I need to quickly create a rotation axis through the center point by creating a construction line on either the front or right default plane. We tap the Transform tool again, select the part to rotate, choose the rotate transform type, and then select the axis we just created. Finally, we set 90 degrees for the angle value, and with our preview slider we can verify if the transform will produce the correct results. Now we have 2 parts that do not intersect, so we will use the Move Face tool to extend one of the parts by 8mm so both parts touch again. I pick the face to move, specify the direction, and drag the arrow until both parts intersect. Next, we will merge both parts using the Boolean Union tool. You now see we only have 1 part in the parts list. Let's quickly rename that part to 50mm 90-degree straight to indicate hole distance and hole orientation in the part name. Let's make a few more changes to our part, introducing a few more features of Onshape. Since we most likely will 3D print our part, we should remove more material. For that, we select one of the side faces and switch into sketch mode. I want to create a rectangle that is centered on the face with a 3.5mm spacing from the edges. There are now several ways to do this. I could create a couple of construction lines to mark the center of the face and then use the center point rectangle tool to create the rectangle. Then I would need to dimension it. However, since we're learning CAD, I'll choose another method which has some additional benefits in case we change the basic part design. We'll use the offset tool to create lines parallel to the edges and set the distance to 3.5mm. There are 3 edges long enough to do this. The 4th edge is a bit short, so we'll use the extend tool to match the line to the perpendicular one. Let's use the trim tool to quickly remove the lines not necessary. Next, we'll use the extrude tool with the remove option and set the depth to 3.5mm. We now need to do the same thing on the other side. We select the face and switch into sketch mode, but now simply project the rectangle from the other side with the use tool. Once the rectangle is completed, we use the extrude remove operation again to finish the pocket. The last step is to fill all edges with the part with a 0.5mm rounded edge.